So the third time's the charm. Apparently, if your memory is completely full, you cannot screen record because it cannot save. But here is the Chapter 18 tips video. So in Google Classroom, we have Chapter 18 questions. Hopefully you've done your terms first, otherwise the reading won't make a lot of sense. But if we go into questions and open up our slides, press the square arrow, excuse me, there it is, double tap. I prefer to press these days open link and open the Google Drive folder for the textbook pages and then split back to the slides. So the first one we have is a question about anglerfish and how they catch fish. There are fish that go fishing, and this thing, basically a fishing pole comes off their head, and here's the bait, and something about the bait makes it easy for them to catch fish. So say what the bait is. Now the bait is a thing, and it's not doing this for free. It helps the anglerfish because it gets something in return. So the second part of question 1, what does it get in return? For question 2, we need to understand abiotic and biotic, that are terms. Biotic means a living part of a system, and abiotic means a non-living part of the system. And the alligator, if you read, and you do have to read, affects a living part of its system and actually 2 non-living part of its system. So you need to write about one of those non-living parts. We skipped this page because that's vocab we'll cover in slide 2's notes. For the next one, we have to understand that a population is a group of individuals of the same species living in the same area. If we look at the salt marsh picture across these 2 pages, not everything is in a group. The egret's all alone. It's not in a population. And even though there are 2 crabs, they're different kinds, so they're not in a population. You need 3 groups of things that are in a group, but also the same type of thing. There's more than 3, so pick 3. Question 4, we read up here in the ecosystem paragraph. An ecologist is a person who studies ecosystems. They would find something that could influence or change how well or poorly cordgrass grows. So look for that word influence and write in detail there. Lastly, in slide 1, the type of water involved in an ecosystem really changes what type of life can live. So name the 3 basic types of water in the biosphere paragraph. To do slide 2, to take notes, we need to open the notes page. We could use the book slides. We could read carefully here and read carefully down here. But it's easier to open link and open the notes I've helped you with. So this is the second time. So for instance, population is the second group, the orange group, 2 or more individuals of the same species living in the same area. The next one up is community, and I would write for this one, hopefully we can match colors, 2 or more populations living in the same area. And so that one's done. And then I'd go do the next one. The next one would be ecosystem. So I would change this green one to ecosystem and so on. So those are a point apiece. The Venn diagram is less. So here, what's the green one? It's an herbivore. So I changed it to herbivore. The next one isn't the dark maroon one. The next one is the red one, which is a carnivore. A flesh eater. And we keep going. That one is a half point apiece because we're just writing the word, not the definition. Slide 3, we want to get back into the book pages. So I'm going to open that again. And we're looking at types of consumers in this very simple food chain. So a coyote is what? So we would read the picture. And then a turkey vulture is what? And a prairie dog is what type of consumer? A food chain is the simplest way to show how energy goes through an ecosystem, but it's not the best. Now a food web is more complicated. You have to find out why it's better or why a food chain is worse here on this food web page. An energy pyramid for question 8 is just a different way to show a food chain, but in this case the size of the blocks tries to show how much energy and how many organisms exist. So the biggest block at the bottom is almost always plants or producers, and that means there's more plants than anything else in the system because they have more energy. Because when a prairie dog eats them, they lose a lot of their energy to heat and other processes and don't actually get to keep very much. The same when a coyote eats prairie dogs, there's less energy available and fewer coyotes and even fewer scavengers. I'm not asking you about those creatures, I'm asking you about these creatures. I've adapted the book's math problem, and we have aquatic plants eaten by insects, eaten by bluegill fish, eaten by bass, eaten by an eagle. And looking at the energy pyramid and the size of the blocks, you have to decide which organism would be the most common and most abundant and which would be the least. Then we talk about gray wolves. Gray wolves have a terrible history in that we humans killed all the gray wolves in the lower 48 states. They used to be everywhere. They only barely existed in Canada and Alaska. And so when we wiped them out, what problems occurred because they were gone? Now, habitat for question 10 is where you live, but niche or niche, you can say it either way, is how an organism lives. So the gray wolf's way of life, or niche, is on this page, and you need to just simply state the 4 basic aspects of a gray wolf's way of life. We'll read more about them with the Collins writing on Monday. So Monday we do slide 3. Slide 4 is Wednesday, because Tuesday we have an activity to build our own food webs. Question 11, what is the limiting factor? We got to read down here. It's a vocab word. And how does that affect carrying capacity? And then competition, what do living things compete with? There are 2 simple groups living things compete with. Another type of relationship is predator-prey. And here we have some lists of how prey try to avoid being eaten by predators. And spoiler alert, predators use almost all the same strategies that prey species do. 13, commensalism. Well, we skip mutualism, where 2 living things help each other. A commensalism is where one living thing helps itself and the other living thing is unaffected. So there's an example here pictured. Parasitism we also skip because we're familiar with that. One living thing helps itself by hurting another. So here we have wasp larva eating a caterpillar while it's still alive. But all these relationships can sometimes get so connected that they go into a coevolution. In the coevolution, 2 living things are so connected, they change each other. So in this case, ants and acacia trees have a very close relationship. You have to state how the ants are behaving differently from regular ants and how the acacia tree is different from regular trees in this relationship. Sometimes coevolution can be what we would think of as negative. So in Australia, question 15, rabbits were introduced and they just went nuts and were real happy and took over. So the Australian government, to solve the problem of too many rabbits, they couldn't shoot them all, there was just nothing to be done, they introduced a virus. And over the years, the rabbits and the virus have co-evolved. So if you read up here in the apply box, you can describe how they have changed compared to each other. That's chapter 18, and while we should be able to wrap up the slides on Wednesday, April 13th, there's always a little extra time, and because of spring break, we won't get back to this, and it won't be technically due until Tuesday, April 19th. As always, ask me questions in class if you have a question, or email me if we're not in class. Good luck.